Every reporter dreams of publishing that one story that uncovers a massive scandal or crime. But what happens when you take it too far and uncover too much? Would your government be transparent and admit to its faults, or would they attempt to cover their tracks by any means necessary? Today's case file is on the ultimate conspiracy narrative, one that involves an international confederacy behind nearly every political and economic affair in 1980s and 1990s Washington, D.C. It is known as the Octopus. One of the linchpins of the octopus theory is October Surprise, a conspiracy theory that claims America and Iran conspired to swing the 1980 presidential election between incumbent Jimmy Carter and opposer Ronald Reagan. During the Iranian Revolution, Iran took 66 Americans hostage, which was a contentious issue in the 1980 election season. It was thought that Carter would have a chance at re-election if the hostages were released during his presidency, which would be the October Surprise namesake. However, the election season went on without the release, until 20 minutes after Reagan gave his inaugural address, when Iran announced it would be releasing the American hostages. Theorists ran with the seemingly coincidental timing, positing that Iran had actually released the hostages earlier, and for delaying the information, its half of the deal was being rewarded with weapons and money after Reagan had been elected. Several people within the American and Iranian governments have come forward saying the theory is true, giving credence to the October Surprise conspiracy. A second crux of the overarching conspiracy is the Iran-Contra affair. During Ronald Reagan's second term in office, senior officials secretly shipped weapons to Iran, which was under an arms embargo at the time. The government claimed it was to persuade Iran to liberate 7 American hostages. The guns would be sent to Iran by Israel, who would then be sent to restock by the US and pay them back. However, part of the money from Israel was later spent funding the Contras in their fight against Nicaragua's socialist government. Reagan was aware of these trades, and apparently didn't act to stop them because he couldn't be seen ignoring the chance to free innocent people. He later stated that the trades had occurred but not for the freedom of hostages, and after this, the investigation on the matter came to a halt when it was discovered that a large number of documents had been destroyed or concealed. Another piece of the puzzle was the investigation of the Bank of Credit and Commerce International, or the BCCI, for money laundering, violations of lending laws, accepting deposits from drug traffickers, and other financial crimes. It was accused of maintaining accounts for Saddam Hussein, among others, as well as the CIA. The bank was set up to be busted in a months-long undercover investigation that culminated in a staged wedding at which many high-profile account holders and employees were in attendance. The final central point of the Octopus conspiracy was the 1988 Inslaw case, which ruled that the U.S. Department of Justice has stolen prosecution management software from the technology company Inslaw Incorporated. The Department of Justice had developed the software, known as Promise, in tandem with Inslaw. Inslaw's founder, William Hamilton, alleged the government had distributed Promise illegally while he had held a position with the Department of Justice, which caused Inslaw to lose millions of dollars and file for bankruptcy. A federal judge did rule that the government had stolen the software, but this ruling was overturned 3 years later. Due to Hamilton's allegations, a conspiracy theory arose that claimed the Department of Justice had riddled the Promise software with backdoors and sold it off to people they had wanted to spy on. This theory was headed by a computer expert named Michael Riconosciuto, who was later arrested on unrelated drug charges, though he claims he was set up and was actually being silenced for theorizing about the Inslaw case. The Octopus was compiled and researched by a writer named Danny Casolaro. In August 1991, he went to Martinsburg, West Virginia to meet with a source that would give him the information he needed to tie the Octopus conspiracy together. Casolaro had been working alone and had been repeatedly rejected by publishers. For some 3 months before leaving for Martinsburg, Casolaro had been receiving threatening phone calls late at night. He told his family that if anything were to happen to him, it wouldn't be an accident. He was found dead in his hotel room on August 10th. Casolaro was naked in the bathtub with his wrists slashed deeply, about 10 to 12 times in total. Blood was splashed onto the walls and the floor, making a scene so gruesome that one of the hotel staff fainted upon seeing it. Under his body were an empty beer can, a razor blade, and 2 trash bags. In the other room, which was contrastingly clean, there was a note on the desk that read, "To those who I love the most, please forgive me for the worst possible thing I could have done. Most of all, I'm sorry to my son. I know deep down inside that God will let me in." The police ruled Casolaro's death a suicide based on the note, the lack of a sign of forced entry or struggle, and the presence of alcohol. The autopsy determined that the cause of death was blood loss. This is where the paper trail gets tricky. Danny Casolaro's death was being reported by mainstream sources, which caused a second wave of investigations. It was later proven that the FBI had misinformed Congress about investigating the Casolaro case, and the task force assigned to the case had not been certain about the suicide ruling. In addition, the FBI also stated that they were missing some files on Casolaro, when in reality, they were being withheld from the public. There were theories that the CIA had been involved with his death, or he was killed by the mafia, or even that he had planned his suicide to look like a murder scene so that people would talk about the octopus. Danny Casolaro's family insists that he was murdered because of 2 important points. First, he was very afraid of the sight of blood and would likely not have killed himself in such a gory manner. And second, he complained frequently about the threats he had been receiving. Because of the nature of Casolaro's work, one of the forefront explanations is that he was murdered to cover up the octopus conspiracy. However, it is also equally as likely that he committed suicide out of guilt and shame. One of the last people to see Danny Casolaro alive, Mike Looney, said that during their conversation, Casolaro left to make a phone call and returned saying his source he had planned to meet with wouldn't be showing up. With this in mind, plus the information from the note, it's safe to say he felt a lot of hopelessness regarding his work and how he had given up on his family. Casolaro's source could have been the final blow for him, and after realizing that no one would take him seriously, he decided to end his life. There is one more thing in my notes that still, to this day, has no explanation. At the end of Danny Casolaro's funeral, a man in U.S. Army dress arrived to place a medal on the coffin and salute it as it was lowered into the ground. Casolaro had not served in or been affiliated with the military, and the man has never been identified.